from engineering a rocket that could land itself back on the launch pad, to staking everything on an all-or-nothing production gamble that saved an entire company. This is every time Elon Musk was a genius. Starting with number 1, the PayPal pivot. Alright, so here's the irony. Elon Musk's first big break wasn't about rockets or cars, it was about banking. He co-founded a company called X.com in 1999, an online financial services company. And when it merged with Confinity to form PayPal, most people in the company wanted to scrap X.com's technology entirely and rebuild on different software. Elon saw it the other way and pushed hard for X.com's infrastructure. He got ousted as CEO for it. And then here's the genius part. He stayed on as a major shareholder, kept his mouth shut, and when eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion in 2002, Musk walked away with $165 million. While other people fought over who got credit, he cashed out and immediately wrote a $100 million check into a rocket company. Most people would have been bitter. He was busy. Number 2, founding SpaceX on a bar napkin calculation. When Musk first got interested in Mars, he called NASA and couldn't even get a meeting. He flew to Russia twice to try to buy decommissioned ICBMs as rockets for a Mars greenhouse project, and both times the Russians laughed him out of the room. They reportedly spit on his shoes. On the flight home from Moscow, Musk pulled out a laptop and started building a spreadsheet. He calculated the raw material costs of rocket components and discovered something wild. The actual material cost of a rocket was only about 2% of what aerospace companies were charging. The price wasn't the physics, it was the business model. So he decided to build his own rockets from scratch, vertically integrate the supply chain, and undercut the entire industry. That spreadsheet became SpaceX, and the insight that aerospace was artificially expensive, not fundamentally expensive, was the kind of observation that changes industries. 3. The Tesla death spiral and the Hail Mary production move. By 2008, Elon Musk was simultaneously running SpaceX and Tesla, and both companies were on the edge of bankruptcy at the same time. SpaceX had just failed 3 consecutive rocket launches. Tesla was burning through cash. The global financial crisis hit. Musk had to make an impossible call. He split his last $40 million between both companies rather than saving one. And he later admitted that was essentially a coin flip on 2 failing startups. But here's where the genius move came in. Tesla needed to ship the Roadster, and the company only had enough parts inventory to build one final production run. If that batch failed quality checks, it was over. Musk moved into the factory. He slept on the floor. He personally reviewed every car coming off the line. That batch passed. The Roadster shipped. The company lived. And on Christmas Eve, 2008, SpaceX secured a $1.6 billion NASA contract that saved the rocket company too. Musk had bet his last dollar on 2 companies simultaneously and won both in the same week. 4. Figuring out the Falcon 9 problem differently. When SpaceX was developing reusable rockets, the entire aerospace industry said reusability was either impossible or economically pointless. The conventional wisdom was that recovering a rocket cost more than it saved. Musk's insight was that they were thinking about the problem wrong. He pointed out that if you had a commercial airplane and you threw it away after every flight, air travel would cost $500,000 per seat. The cost of the vehicle isn't the problem, it's whether you throw it away. So, instead of dismissing reusability as impractical, SpaceX spent years learning how to flip a 15-story rocket around in midair, slow it down from hypersonic speeds, and land it precisely on a floating drone ship in the ocean. The first few attempts failed spectacularly. The rocket crashed, exploded, fell over. But on December 21st, 2015, the Falcon 9 first stage came back down and landed itself upright on a concrete pad. The internet lost its mind. The booster is coming back down. It's going to try to land. Oh my God. And every rocket company in the world had to rethink their entire business model overnight. 5. The Tesla model. In 2017, Tesla announced the Model 3, a mass-market electric car priced at $35,000. Over 450,000 people put down a $1,000 deposit, and then production completely collapsed. Tesla was producing about 1,000 cars a week when they needed 5,000. The stock was tanking, the press was writing obituaries, analysts were calling it the end of Tesla. Musk made a decision that his own engineers told him was insane. He built a third production line outside in a tent in the parking lot. Not a real factory, a tent. But here's what the engineers missed. The fancy automated robots inside the factory were the bottleneck. They were moving too slowly, jamming, glitching. The humans in the tent line were faster. Musk had essentially reverse engineered his own over-engineered factory by going outside it. Production hit 5,000 cars a week in June 2018. The tent became a symbol not of desperation, but of the willingness to completely abandon the plan when the plan isn't working. 6. Starlink and the bandwidth arbitrage. When Musk announced that SpaceX would build a satellite internet constellation, the telecom industry was dismissive. Satellite internet had been tried before, and it was slow, expensive, and had terrible latency. What made Starlink different wasn't just the technology, it was that SpaceX owned its own rocket. Every other satellite internet company had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in launch costs. Musk realized that with reusable Falcon 9 rockets, he could launch satellites at a fraction of what any competitor could. He wasn't just building a satellite internet business. He was using the rocket company to subsidize the satellite company. The two businesses were secretly one business. By 2023, Starlink had over 1 million subscribers and was reportedly generating more revenue than the rest of SpaceX combined. And because it's cheaper to launch using his own rockets, no competitor can match his economics without also owning a rocket company. He built a moat disguised as a satellite dish. 7. The Twitter acquisition chaos that was actually strategic. When Musk first started buying Twitter stock in early 2022, most people assumed he was just being chaotic. He offered to buy the whole company, tried to back out, got legally forced to close the deal, and then walked in carrying a sink. Let that sink in. It seemed like a disaster. He fired most of the staff, advertisers fled, and the press was calling it a catastrophic implosion. But here's what nobody was saying out loud. Twitter, now X, had always been a chronically mismanaged company that spent 16 years failing to generate real profit despite having hundreds of millions of users. Indeed, by slashing the workforce from roughly 7,500 to under 2,000, the cost structure was transformed overnight. And Musk immediately started pushing for payments, subscriptions, and business features that Twitter's previous management had debated for years without ever shipping. Whether you agree with how he did it or not, the business case was straightforward. A company with massive reach and almost no revenue is worth very little. A company with massive reach and a real monetization engine is worth a fortune. He was buying the audience, not the company. 8. The boring company and lateral thinking. When Musk got stuck in Los Angeles traffic in 2016, he tweeted that he was going to buy a tunnel boring machine and just start digging. Most people assumed it was a joke. It was not a joke. He started the boring company. And here's where the thinking gets interesting. Conventional tunnel boring is extraordinarily expensive, around $1 billion per mile in an American city. Musk's team started asking why. They discovered that standard tunnels are built wide enough to accommodate emergency vehicles, ventilation systems, and rail infrastructure all at once. The boring company's insight was that if you put the car on a sled and move the car through the tunnel, you don't need a wide tunnel. You just need a car-sized hole in the ground. A smaller tunnel is cheaper by orders of magnitude. The Las Vegas Convention Center Loop opened in 2021, moving thousands of passengers per day through tunnels that cost a fraction of conventional subway construction. The insight wasn't technical. It was asking why anyone built tunnels, the way they did in the first place. Entonces, 9 Giga Berlin and the manufacturing gigacasting breakthrough. At the Tesla Gigafactory in Berlin, Musk approved a manufacturing technique that the car industry had dismissed as impractical. Traditional car manufacturing assembles the underbody of a car from around 70 to 80 stamped steel pieces welded together. Tesla replaced the entire rear underbody with a single giant aluminum casting made by a machine the size of a house. The automotive industry said it couldn't be done at scale. The casting wouldn't be precise enough. The reject rate would be too high. The machine would be too expensive. Tesla did it anyway. The process reduced the rear underbody of the Model Y from 70 parts to 1, cut assembly time, reduced robots required, and eliminated hundreds of welds that could fail over time. Other manufacturers have since started quietly investing in their own giant casting machines. Once again, the genius was not the engineering invention itself. It was recognizing that the way everyone in the industry was doing something was a historical accident, not a physical law. 10. The Neuralink demonstration and the long game. In 2024, Neuralink implanted its first chip in a human patient, a paralyzed man named Nolan Arbaugh. The results were extraordinary. Using only his thoughts, Arbaugh was able to control a computer cursor, play online chess, and learn to play Civilization 6. He said it was the life-changing experience of a lifetime. It's like using the Force. Now, the genius here isn't the chip itself, which was the product of hundreds of engineers. The genius is the framing and the patience. Musk founded Neuralink in 2016 and spent 8 years building toward a single clinical demonstration. He kept the company funded through years of regulatory hurdles, public skepticism, and scientific debate, never losing sight of the core premise that if you can create a reliable, high bandwidth interface between a human brain and a computer, the implications are not just medical, they are civilizational. For decades, brain-computer interface research had been underfunded academic work. Musk turned it into a private, well-capitalized race and moved the timeline forward by probably a decade. The long game is the hardest game to play. He played it. 11. The battery day energy density calculation. In 2020, Tesla held its much-hyped Battery Day event. Investors were expecting an announcement of a revolutionary new battery chemistry. What they got instead was a lecture on manufacturing. Musk walked through 5 separate improvements to battery cell design, each modest on its own. A new electrode geometry, a new dry electrode process, a new cell format, a new cell-to-pack integration, and a new anode material. None of these was individually world-shattering, but he explained that combined across the entire value chain, these changes would reduce the cost per kilowatt hour of battery storage by 56%. Wall Street was disappointed and the stock dipped, but battery researchers knew what they were hearing. A 56% cost reduction in batteries is the difference between electric vehicles being more expensive than gas cars and being cheaper. The genius wasn't a single breakthrough. It was the compounding of many incremental improvements simultaneously, and understanding that the math only works when you control every step of the manufacturing process yourself. 12. Surviving 2008 to become the richest person on Earth. The full arc is worth stating plainly. In 2008, Elon Musk was divorced, his rocket company had failed 3 times, his car company was nearly bankrupt, he was borrowing money from friends to pay rent, and he was crying in interviews. By 2021, he was the richest human being in the history of recorded wealth. That trajectory is not an accident of timing or luck, although timing helped. It's the result of a series of calculated, often irrational seeming bets, each placed at the moment when conventional wisdom said it was over. He bet on reusable rockets when aerospace said it was impossible. He bet on electric vehicles when the industry said there was no market. He bet on solar and batteries when utilities said it was impractical. He bet on tunnels when cities said they were too expensive. He bet on satellite internet when telecom said it couldn't compete. Every single one of those bets is still playing out. And the consistent pattern is not genius in the Hollywood sense of spontaneous brilliance. It's the willingness to do the math on something that everyone has already decided not to think about and then refuse to stop thinking about it until it works. And guys, we're not just done yet. You can watch our awesome video on the right side. Yep, right here. Let me just point an arrow at it so you don't miss it. But thanks for watching, commenting, Have a good one, and bye-bye.